Hello, and welcome back to the Murakami Companion podcast, a show inspired by the works of Haruki Murakami, where we analyze his body of work in its entirety. Today, we'll be talking about Blind Willow, a Sleeping Woman, Murakami's longest short story collection, with 24 titles on the list, which was released in 2006 in Japan and later in English that same year. It was a pretty fast translation. A little behind the scenes of this podcast, this is not the last episode released, but it's the last episode that was written and recorded, because it's so hard to talk about this book. This collection is beautiful, it's ethereal, it's whimsical. Not every single story has a perfectly good ending, and there are dark moments as well, but it's overall a very positive collection. If you like reading surrounded by nature, this is the perfect book for that. It's a perfect book also to read, for example, during vacations. There's a story here called The Seventh Man, about a man recalling a traumatic incident from his childhood, which is easily the best short story Murakami has ever written, and it should go on the Short Story Hall of Fame if there is one. I'm not even going to spoil the ending here because I don't want to take away your experience of reading it for the first time. There's a story called The Year of Spaghetti, which is just a man so focused on making spaghetti one day that it causes him trouble to connect healthily with other people, as he says, "Sorry, I can't talk. I have to focus on the spaghetti or it might get ruined." So his excessive passion for something causes him to isolate himself from other people. And it's such a simple story, but you can apply it to so many situations in real life where a job or a hobby or any activity might isolate you from other people. You can extrapolate so much meaning from these very simple yet beautifully constructed fables. There's a story here called Birthday Girl that actually received its own standalone book with illustrations by German artist Kat Menschik. And it's about a waitress who's working on her 20th birthday, and she meets the owner of the restaurant, whom grants her one birthday wish. She is actually retelling this story to a friend, and it's a reflection on the nature of wishes and desires, and the nature of being young and not understanding life enough yet to really make good use of that one wish. There is a short story here titled Tonita Kitani, which is about an illustrator who is used to loneliness, who suddenly finds love. It was actually written in 1990 and published in a Japanese magazine, got a film adaptation in 2004, and it was added to the list of titles of 2006 Blind Willow, Sleeping Woman, later getting its own standalone book. And I mention this because while this is Murakami's longest short story collection, it is also extremely well put together. It's an incredibly careful selection. The short stories Firefly and Man-Eating Cats, that were written many years prior, became the basis for Tokyo Blues, Norwegian Wood, and Sputnik Sweetheart. This collection, it feels almost like it is a greatest hits album. I wouldn't say that this is a book for reflection and analysis, because the stories are not very complex in nature. They are mostly straightforward. You're not going to be trying to put together what happens in the book or what does it all means, but you can extrapolate so much meaning from all of these short stories. To me, it is very surprising that this book came out in 2006. It reminds me of a retrospective that I saw about the song Don't Worry Be Happy by Bobby McFerrin, where the reviewer said that it almost feels like the song has always existed, as if it came from some traditional chant sung by ancient tribes, but it's actually from 1988. This book has a similar effect. It feels like it could have been published any time between the early 20th century and the present. Also, like A Perfect Day for Kangaroos, A Poor Aunt Story, Nausea 1979, those three are all titles that you should look forward to read. Blind Willow, Sleeping Woman is a must-read short story collection. It's a little different from the other ones from Murakami because it's the only one that doesn't have like a strong theme that unifies all of the stories, but it's more like a mood. It's a style, it's a criteria for selection. Because with the other ones, it's like you remember the overall theme of the book and you start to remember the individual stories. It's not what happens here, but if you open the index, you will start to see each individual title and you'll say, oh, those are all great stories. And for example, the other short story collections, After the Quake has 6 stories, Men Without Women has 7 stories, First Person Singular has 8 stories, and Blind Willow, Sleeping Woman has 24 stories, more than those other 3 books combined. Even The Elephant Vanishes from 1993 has 17 stories. So it's really strong both in quality and quantity. So go read it now. You can get Blind Willow, Sleeping Woman pretty much anywhere where good books are sold. If you want to support this podcast or you just like cool t-shirts, coffee mugs or art prints, we got a few digital stores where you can find all of that and more, featuring the artwork for this episode, inspired by Blind Willow, Sleeping Woman. There will be one design for each episode release of this podcast.